Hi, I'm Sharon Kaliza. Welcome to my place, Rural and Ndondweni, where nature and nurture unite. We are on a whole foods plant-based lifestyle, so we grow organic and daily cook from scratch, growing, healing, using natural remedies. We've been homeschooling our children while teaching them this lifestyle. We also believe in healing people naturally, so I'm a medical missionary who loves teaching and help people reverse lifestyle and chronic disease using natural remedies. Join me on this journey where love and health abide, nourishing life for you and for me. If you are concerned about the health and wellness of your family, then you have come to the right place. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Sharon Kaliza podcast. My name is Sharon, and the podcast, as you have heard when it began, it's all about homeschooling, about gardening, about rural living, about healthful living, plant-based diet. We're on a plant-based diet. It's about cooking from scratch. This is what the show is all about. So if you're interested in any of this, you are interested in the healing, the health and the healing of your family members, have no fear, you're at the right place. Now, take a moment, subscribe to this channel so that you will not miss a single show, and make sure that you share so that many others can actually be benefited by this show. This is the first of many shows that we now do on video. All along we've been doing the Sharon Kaliza podcast on audio only, and we decided to take it on video because there are certain things that I sometimes would wish to share with you, but I would not be able to because I could not show you in picture, and I just describe it. And I know some of the audiences would say, Sharon, when you describe some of the food, or you describe the garden, or you describe this or that, we just want to see it. So I know not everybody can at some point come and visit us here, but with the podcast now live on YouTube, not live, but now showing on video on YouTube, you can get the opportunity to see some of the things that I actually talk about, that I teach about, that I describe. And I hope that with this show, you will be inspired to live the way God had intended for you to live. And so without further ado, today we are talking about something that just came as an inspiration when I went through the garden sometime last week. And I have titled this podcast particularly Tokens of a Neglected Garden. One of my favorite authors writes that, if when men and women could have a piece of land where they can grow their own food, they will be like kings and queens in how they actually live. And that's part of the reason why we decided to go live in the country, because we wanted a larger piece of land where we can actually grow our own food. You know that we are very concerned about our family's health and just the health of the nation in general. The reason why so many people are so sick is because we are not eating real food. We're eating chemicals, we're eating genetically modified foods, and the only way that you can ensure you know what you're putting in your body is if you grow it yourself. And so that's the reason why we moved to the rural. So about 6 months ago, we had cleared a large portion of our land because it was more like a forest. And we had just, started on a smaller portion. I would say that's a 12 by 10 size yard. And we tended, removed the tree stumps, and we tended, and we started some garden beds there so we can start our garden. About 3 months ago, for those who've been following the show, I shared a bit about the garden and how we were eating from the garden, how we were getting some lettuce leaves from there. We were getting loads of baby tomatoes from the garden. And we were getting a whole lot of other things like herbs, like basil, thyme, we were getting oregano, fresh oregano, we were getting lots of kale, lots of spinach from the garden. We also harvested some beetroots, from the garden. We harvested, we've been harvesting quite a lot. Today I was harvesting some onions from the garden. Lots of rocket as well, butter lettuce, purple lettuce. I'm just trying to give you a picture that we've actually been getting a lot from this garden, and we only started this garden about 6 months ago. So when I said we were harvesting the onions today, I was just going through the garden and I was like, Lord, not everything came out as we had hoped it would, but we are eating so much from this garden. We harvested some cabbage, what we're having for supper this evening. We're having some polenta mini meal with organic cabbage. It tasted so nice. And some black-eyed beans for the protein. The meal was just lovely. And so I call this show Tokens from a Neglected Garden. It's because about 2.5 months ago, for some of you who've been following the podcast, the last episode I did, I titled it A New Chapter, because we lost our precious mother. My mother died. And about 2.5 months ago, this is where she took a turn health-wise, and she started being weaker and weaker. And so because we were taking care of her, we could not pay as much attention to the garden. And it seemed as if everything was just going wrong at the time. We still haven't drilled a borehole yet. We're still raising funds towards that. And so we depend heavily on rainwater. We harvest rainwater. And we depend as well on the water that is provided by the local municipality. But during that period when Mom was really sick and we couldn't be out in the garden a lot, there was no rain, and the water from the local municipality just was not coming. They were not opening the taps. They had to open a reservoir to let the water flow. And there was no rain. And we had run out of the water that we had harvested, in the Jojo tanks to water the garden. So not only were we not going to the garden, we were not even watering the garden. And the weeds started just, doing their thing. You know how weeds are like. Though you may not be watering the garden, weeds will grow, though the plants may be suffering and struggling. And it really broke my heart every time I went out to the garden to have a look at it. We went down to Johannesburg, to bury my mother. And when we came down, I didn't even want to go see the garden because I just thought, disaster, disaster. But when we went there, I was encouraged. This one day when I decided to go to just de-weed the garden, I was so encouraged. That's the day where we harvested the beetroot, and I think you're seeing that. I don't know if it's video or photos, but I know you're watching that now. We harvested some beetroot, then we got some really big beets then. We got some lettuce that was just, pouring itself out, and we were having raw salads from the very garden that had been neglected for almost 2.5 months. And so I call it Tokens from a Neglected Garden, because I learned something as I was working in that garden, that even though sometimes we may neglect our garden because of circumstances of life, if we had laid a good foundation, because we had mulched that garden, we had put some grass, to cover it, so that when water does come onto the garden, the water will actually stay in the garden and keep the soil moist, because we had covered it. And secondly, we had used a lot of compost in the garden. So we had, even though it was neglected for 2.5 months, not watered, not whatever, but it had the right, minerals that were necessary for the garden to actually flourish and thrive. And we had quite a number of worms as we were working in that garden. There were quite a number of earthworms when we were actually preparing it, that we actually met on the garden. And so even though we were not present, God in his mercy, kept, nature doing what it knew how to do best. And for me, I thought, wow, sometimes we get to be so discouraged and so disappointed about character development, maybe the goals that you had in mind, and you had put so much effort at first, but things did not come to fruition, and there were disturbances, things that came into your life that disturbed you, and you felt like, you had just worked in vain and all was lost. And then you start again with the Lord, and suddenly you start seeing tokens of a little bit of that which you had sown before, a little bit that you had planted some few months back. And so I just am here to encourage you today that even in the deep or darkest hours of life, God is able to bring out something beautiful out of your life. God is able to manifest, to leave you little tokens to say, I will not leave you, neither will I forsake you. These are the little things that I've just left for you, treasures. Those little treasures encouraged me. When I saw that beetroot, I was encouraged. I was like, I'm going back to the garden. Oh, we harvested some chickpeas as well. And it seemed as if the chickpeas had molded and some were eaten by worms, so I just gave up. I removed them from the garden, and took even about 2 weeks before I actually de-shelled them. But when I de-shelled them, we found some lots of living chickpeas, way more than what we had planted. And I was thinking, I shouldn't easily give up on the things I have put some effort in life, even though along the way I may have not cared for them as I wish that I would have. So, tokens of a neglected garden. Where are we now? Today I was working in the garden. Husband has been working on the garden quite a lot as well. We have tended quite a few spaces. We're planting some corn. We've put down some brinjal. So we're gonna share these, as months roll on, and we'll share these and how they fare. We planted some brinjal. We've planted some onions. We had so many onions. We still have so many to harvest in the garden, but we've planted some garlic and more onion. You always want to plant onion in your garden. It's a pest repellent. We've planted some more onions. We've planted as well. I've just soaked some okra, because I'm going to plant some okra as well. And we've planted some cucumber. It's a beautiful time for us to plant cucumber. I actually even harvested so we had left some of the lettuce plants so that they can seed, and we can take those seeds and replant them again. So I was actually just removing those seeds, and tomorrow I'm going to be planting those so that we can have more lettuce going forward. Now, why am I sharing all of this about food? There are so many things happening around the world that are showing us that there's a crisis that is about to take place in the world. About a week ago in California, a digital ID took effect. Now, one may think it's just digital ID. There's just so much more, behind it. It's really about control. They want to control how we spend our money, where we spend it, how much we can spend of it. They want us to control how we spend our time, when we worship, how we worship. And part of those people who will be able to stand up and say, I will not be controlled, will only be able to do that when they are independent in terms of the natural resources that they need to live off. If you are dependent on the system for your basics, like your food, if you are dependent on the system for your electricity, if you're dependent on the system for your water, like we were, and we struggled for those couple of months, that's the one thing we're working towards and praying about. If we can drill a borehole, that's the final step for us being independent of all systems, because we already are off the grid in terms of electricity. We are on solar full time. We are not on the food bit. We are producing, I would say, maybe we're around 20% of the food that we eat. There are certain things that I've just decided I'm not buying this anymore. I find it really hard to buy tomatoes now. They're so expensive. I'm like, I've got a garden. We've planted some, though because of neglect, they've been struggling a bit, and they got some worms going into them. There are some that are still coming out all right, and we've just put some new tomato plants in the garden. I'm not buying no tomatoes. We're not buying things like your spinach, your kale, our greens. We're not buying any greens anymore. We're getting them from the garden. And so there are certain things that we now know we're producing for ourselves. And we're working on building a nursery so that we'll be able to plant throughout the whole year the greens, especially the sensitive vegetables that are affected by weather. When it gets really hot here, lettuce leaves become bitter and they get scorched by the sun. So they're going to be in the nursery. Things like cucumber and tomato, we're going to have them in the nursery in summer, but outside in winter. And so all of those things we're doing in preparing for what might take place in the world, where we will find ourselves now so dependent on the system that if they started dictating what you can and cannot do, you find that you end up doing what they want you to do simply because you are not self-sufficient. So I want to encourage you, really I am, if you've never thought of this and it may have not been on your game plan, start thinking about it. If you've never thought about finding a piece of land outside of the city where you can actually start growing your own food, where you can start building a homestead that will be off the grid, where you'll get your own solar panels and your inverters and batteries, where you will plant, where you'll get your own borehole so that you can supply your own water. Where you can actually start planting and growing your own food, planting fruit trees. We've been planting some fruit trees as well. I'll share. I don't think I took any, maybe one of the videos that will be coming up. I will actually show you some of our fruit trees that we've planted. We were harvesting a lot this year from our granadilla trees, and we also got a lot, from the locally readily available all over the guava trees and so forth. So those are some of the little things that we've actually seen that we don't have enough of. So we've planted more pawpaw trees. We're trying to really expand our orchard so that at the end we can get to that point where we're saying we are literally self-sufficient. We have our own food. We've planted in the garden some sweet potatoes. We've planted some potatoes. We've planted some pumpkins, butternut squash, the yellow pumpkin, the hubbub squash, a variety of them. We're trying to plant veggies that can actually, even after harvesting, keep for a long time, so that we know that over 6 months, over a year, we've got sufficient to actually carry us through. And this is something that you have not thought of before. I'm encouraging you to start thinking about that. I'm encouraging you to start thinking about investing for your family and for the health of your family. Not just for health only, but also for the security of being an independent mind, being able to make decisions not out of fear, but out of, this is my belief system, I will not be forced to do anything else contrary to what I believe in. Then this is something that you want to look at. But other than that, I'm so excited that we are on video now. There's just so much more that is coming. So make sure you subscribe. We're also available on audio if you're driving and you cannot watch the video, but you want to listen to the podcast while driving. We're available on Podbean. So you just look for Sharon Kiliza on Podbean. Our podcast is there as well. And now we're also available on video on YouTube. We're trying to get onto all other podcasting platforms. And we will let you know as we manage to get onto that. So see you next time as we strive to take your health to a higher level. Bye for now.